Hi everyone, it's Vicky. So this is part 2 of my rose journal. I've already made one video where I've shown you how I've covered a book, and now I'm doing the inside of that cover. So I'm just marking where I would like to cut this. It's some scrapbooking card. So first I'm working on the length, and I did take a 12 by 12 piece of card and I tore it in half so that it would fit my book cover. So that's that first measurement I took. Then I've trimmed it down so it's the right length, and now I'm just checking how much I need to take off for that spine area, because I don't want the spine to be covered. It will be covered, but not by this card. And I'm just using the ruler to tear this off because that edge will be covered a bit later. And I'm going to be using my Beacon 3-in-1 all the way around the edges. I'm trying to make sure I get right up to the edges, and I'm going to glue it down. And this video has been sped up, so this is in fast forward, so I don't glue this fast. And just hold it down for a minute or two so that it sticks. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you don't have to use the same color paper on the front and the back cover, but I really like this print, so I decided to do that. But you can switch it up and have something different on the back cover. Now I'm just checking that everything's glued down. So now my cover is nearly done. I'm going to be working on my signatures. And a signature is just a group of papers. I'm going to make 3 signatures for this journal. And these papers that I'm working on now, I've sewn 2 pages together along the top and the bottom. And I'm just using my circle punch to take out a half circle on one page on each side. Hope it makes sense. And that is the notches, so that I can easily add and remove things from that space. And my punch is a little bit blunt on this paper, so it did take a bit of wriggling around. And I've got a lovely combination of papers. I've got tissue paper and book paper and printables. So now I'm organizing my papers into 3 piles. All I'm doing right now is making sure there's an even number of papers per signature. So I want one of each kind of paper in each signature. So I just found this is the easiest way to do it. And that pink paper is a spare, so I'll just leave it at the top. And I'm just tucking them all into the first page until I can arrange them and sort them. And I'm going to check if they fit inside the cover, because that's very important. And now I'm going to rearrange the papers so they flow nicely. And I don't really have a way that I do this. I don't have a formula that I follow. I just put them in, and if I like the way they look, they stay. If they need to be readjusted, they are readjusted. And obviously it's not going to be perfect, but this is a junk journal, so it will be fine. And you can see I've got a lovely combination of colors. Almost every page has got roses on it or rose colors on it. And I like the way there's little threads hanging out as well. And I've finished the other 2 signatures the same way I've done this one. but I've cut it out of the video because it does make the video very long. And now I'm going to be working on that part that you sew the signatures to and you attach to the spine. And I'm using some scrapbooking card, but I've got the creamy color facing me and the printed color is going to be glued down. And first I've cut it so it's the right length. Then I'm going to cut it to the width, but you'll see it is a bit too wide, so I end up cutting it a bit smaller. And I'm saying cutting, but I'm using my ruler, so I'm actually tearing it. And that little piece of paper that I'm using to measure with, that's the exact measurement of my spine. So I'm folding my cream color cardboard so that I've got a space that's the same size as my spine, and then a little bit on each side that I can glue down to the book cover. Although I end up gluing everything to the book cover, not just those two outside edges. And I'm not using a very thick card, but I am going to reinforce it a bit later with a bit of calico. Now there's that little paper again, and I've already folded it in half and in half again, and that's given me 3 measurements, which I'm marking out now. And I use my ruler just to make sure everything's straight. And those are going to be where I'm going to sew in my signatures. And I'm going to use that same little paper as a template to make my holes. And I'm going to be using some embroidery scissors to poke the holes out, and a carpet needle and some crochet cotton to sew in my signatures. So I poke through all the little holes on that white card or cream card, and then I poke through all my holes on my first signature and I sew it in. I find it's easier if my holes are already open. It's easier to get my needle through. And I'm using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch to sew these together. And don't forget, this is fast forwarded, so I'm not really this fast at sewing. And I did try to stay in frame, but a couple of these shots I'm not in frame. But I do show you how I sew all 3 signatures in, so you should be able to get the gist of it from at least one of the 3 signatures that I sew in. And I'm just going to tie this in a knot and then in a bow, and I'll fiddle with it later. But for now it's just to get the signatures sewn in, and then that, I think it's called a text block. I'll have to look it up, but to get that whole thing glued into my spine. So here I'm doing my second signature. So I'm poking through those holes with the sharp scissors. And don't forget to remove your template, otherwise you'll sew it in. And you can see it's a bit more fiddly to sew in your second and your third signature, but it's worth persevering and trying because it does become easier with practice. And there goes the second signature, so I'm just tying it in, and one more signature to go. And that's the last one. And now I'm just opening up my middle signature and lying that whole thing flat. And what you are seeing now is the part that's going to be glued onto my spine. And I've cut a strip of calico. I've left a bit of frayed edge at the top and the bottom. And that's going to look a little bit like those old books that you see that have got a piece of fabric at the top of the spine. And I'm using my Beacon 3-in-1, and I'm gluing all over the back of my threads and over that card, and I'm gluing that fabric down. Now I already glued this down once, which is why it looks like it's got a wet look. I glued it down once, it didn't really work, so I took it out and I did it again. And you can see what I'm doing. I've glued the back and I'm gluing it into the spine of the book. And there was still some glue on the sides, so I didn't have to add too much extra glue. I just kind of pressed it into place. And all I'm doing now is getting it in, trying to get the paper into all those little nooks and crannies so that I don't have any wrinkles and bubbles when I look at my book from the top. So you can see I'm really working it into those spaces. There's like all sorts of ridges and bumps that you just need to remember they exist so that your book comes out smoothly. And now my book looks like a book. So I'm happy with the way these pages look. They're all the right way up, they're all sewn in, and it's ready for decorating. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Bye.